Remember formal, you used to have to do that. That was good. That was fun. Yeah.
We're live.
Okay, we're going to call the meeting to order of the regular meeting of the Board of Education of the Goshen Central School District for Wednesday, September 2nd, 2020. Due to abundance of caution with regard to the spread of COVID-19, and in accordance with Governor Cuomo's March 12th executive order, number 202.1, tonight's meeting will be held at the Main Street Building and via Zoom. Next on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of meditation. Please keep in your thoughts Leroy Hatfield. Worked as a science teacher in our school district for 34 years. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next on the agenda is the financial update. The Board of Education acknowledges the Treasury Report for June 2020. Next on the agenda is the President's Report. We just returned from the building tour of the high school with Principal Martin. Thank you for hosting us. The building looks different, but you did a great job. And I think the students will be take a little time to adjust, but I think they'll enjoy being back when we get there. I was able to stop by since the last meeting to the new teacher orientation, again held at the high school. It's good to see the new teachers and welcome them to our district. We wish them the best of success. Which leads us to this time of year. Normally I would have addressed the teachers and administration in a group forum. Obviously we're not doing that this year. But on behalf of the Board of Education, I'd like to take this time now to welcome our staff, teachers, administrators, to the 2020-21 school year. We wish you a safe, happy, and healthy school year. We as a board are here willing and dedicated to help in any way possible for you. The goal is obviously to provide our students with the best experience. I'd also like to take this time to thank my fellow board members for your volunteerism. The amount of our personal time dedicated recently to prepare for this reopening has been extensive. And it shouldn't go unrecognized. So I say thank you to you guys. Thank you. Next on the report for me is the superintendent search update. As of this morning, we had 1,101 responses to our survey. The most our search firm has seen, and we still have 2 weeks to go. Postcard went out recently to the whole community. Seems like that's generated about 350 responses in the last 4 or 5 days. So it came out pretty good. Thank Christina Gore and Maureen Farrell, who's been helping us with the logistics. She's doing a great job. And we want to recognize you too. Thank you. Currently, the board members are being interviewed by a search firm individually as part of creating a profile along with the survey. And September 30th, we'll be hosting the stakeholder meeting day with our search firm for the community and groups. We'll work on the schedule for that next week and get that out to everybody as soon as we can. There will be a public forum to be for everybody to express their opinions a little bit more extensively than our survey. I know the survey is questions only, not open forum, but there will be a public forum for comments and ideas on September 30th. Next on the agenda is the legislative update. Martha.
Yes, I don't have a great deal to report. As you know, the governor has decided to withhold 20% of our state aid at this time, and it is projected that there will probably be another 20% later in the year held. I would say there's posturing going on between the governor and the federal part of our government because I think that the governor perhaps perceives that by doing these holding backs, that it will pressure the federal government to do their part and send money. And we'll just have to see. I really haven't gotten much communication from Albany or NISBA. So that's all I have to report. And we will hope that they can get that settled so we get our money.
Thank you, Martha.
Oh, also, tonight there is a county school board meeting, and if depending on what time our meeting ends, I plan on joining that meeting too. And perhaps if they have more information about that issue, and I get it tonight, then I will report about it at the next meeting.
Great, thank you. Next
on the agenda is the superintendent report, Mr. Cobb.
Thank you, President Pucci. I will start my report with calling our high school principal, Jen Martin, forward, please, and to provide the board and those listening out there with an update on our diversity, inclusion, education.
Good evening. So I'm going to be providing a sample of one of the professional developments that we're going to use with the full faculty. I'm also going to be providing a sample of the current professional development opportunities that are going on. So if I reference them, you can see them in these documents. So it was exciting when I came to Goshen and heard already that a book club had been started on a voluntary basis amongst teachers. This was a culturally responsive book club during which teachers met on their own time. They read a selection of 4 books that focused on diversity, equity, and greater racial awareness. During those sessions, they would discuss how this would affect their teaching of all students, also how it was affecting their own personal understandings of a lot of the events that were taking place at this time. I was able to, upon coming to the district, attend 2 of those sessions, which through my background in equity and diversity training, which is part of my EDM, I was really excited to see the level to which teachers were willing to listen to new ideas, to bring in different insights, all within a way of providing inclusivity within the curriculum. So funneling right down from the teacher experience out to that of our students. Continuing that momentum, we were looking at how do we begin to look at issues of inclusion, equity, race, and diversity within our school in a way that's helping kids to understand how to make sense of certain events that are going on in the news, things they may witness, things they may have questions about. So first, we need to make sure our teachers are aware of the ideas and the practices that can be used within the classroom. One training that we're going to use on our Wednesday PD time is through the book by Glenn Singleton, Courageous Conversations. It's kind of the benchmark for beginning conversations about race, and it uses 4 very clear truths where people are just asked to stay engaged. There's no right or prescriptive answer. It just gets conversations started in a space that could be somewhat uncomfortable. So we want to hear from all of our teachers and what their thoughts are on this. And we're starting with an overview because some people may have participated in things like the book club and be more prepared and aware and willing to speak about things. Some people may not have had the same experience. We want to afford everyone the same opportunity to join in the conversation. So that's how that would take place in the example of the PowerPoint slides that I provided. We would do this via small group, similar to what we've done for this Professional Development Week. Professional Development Week we're currently running has several parts that are leading up to these discussions of equity, race, and inclusivity. We have Eileen Berenger, our librarian, and she is running culture responsive book talks, both for the educator themselves and to infuse within the classroom. So that means pieces that can be excerpted to add to the curriculum with the rigor and purpose that meet the standards, as well as selections students can check out of the library themselves. We'll be bringing library books to students this year, so they'll be delivered to their library classes so they can still maintain use of the library. That was one of the sessions that you can see on the professional development sheet that was going on. I'm leading a session in Restorative Circles, and that's really going to speak twofold to not only talking about difficult or challenging topics, but starting in an area that will provide extensive socio-emotional support for our students as they return to school. These can be done both virtually or in person. They can be done with some students at home. And today, what teachers went through in their sessions, and there more to continue tomorrow Friday, was a modeling of that, where they got to experience that. So we felt as administrators that was also providing the socio-emotional support that our teaching and faculty, our faculty and staff need to come back and be ready to meet our students with, 100% of their effort. So I think these gentle shifts are getting us to a place where we can, highlight the open-mindedness and potential that is here in Goshen. Mr. Roddy and I were able to take a meeting with Ariana Abramson, and she was a graduate of Goshen. She was recommended to us as someone who might have some ideas, and we listened to what would be involved in highlighting with her program. It's roughly 3 to 4 weeks where we'd be looking at analytics on how to make some evidence-based, not necessarily changes, but I would think enhancements to how we're looking at students and what their needs might be. So her company says, who are your students? They look at trends in test scores. They might look at trends in activities after school. Where are there gaps? Not particularly student private information, but what are the trends where we can make sure that we're meeting the needs of all students and that we have offerings that appeal to all students? So that's something that we thought was very interesting. And at this point, it's 100% free of charge. There doesn't really seem to be a downside to what we'd like to use to enhance what we're already doing. So more information to come on that. We were also able to have a meeting with the Goshen Against Racism group. It was a very positive meeting where, we heard the interest of the members, the young women who were working as advocates on things about which they were very passionate. And they shared much of the same that I just shared with you with their team. They wanted to know if and how things would be different. And I offered that, because we're giving these trainings, because we're looking to proactively work through these conversations, that, we really make sure that the comfort level was there for all of our students. And I can speak to a little bit. I know also at middle school, Principal Carmen has also been working through some programming through her library, offering selections, units for the students not just around Black History Month, but encompassing culture as well as a whole, and that she's provided some examples of that as well.
No, sounds great. We appreciate you reaching out to the groups and meeting with them. Like we said, all along, the Board of Education administrators, our goal is to provide a safe and healthy learning environment for everybody. So we really do appreciate you reaching out to that and addressing some of those needs, and we look forward to the enhancements. Question I would have would be to our team here is, I know the middle school is doing some stuff too, how do we carry that down even further? Sure. And how do you do that at a younger age when they might not, they're also on a different cognitive level?
Yeah, sure. So, so if I can just back up for a moment, I also want to thank Jen and her administrative team for all that they've done. And if you look at the Goshen High School generated list for Wednesday, September 2nd, it's very evident that there's a lot of work put into this. But more importantly, a lot of this was also established as we dedicated a lot of funds with our Title IV funding last year and again this year. So the mental health and social emotional learning pieces, as you can see, are coming full circle, and we're able to really, put together a well-rounded program for all of our students. So leading down into the middle school, I know that Heather Carmen is not able to be here this evening because she has other commitments just up the hill at the building. But she did send us a vast amount of sample lesson plans from her teachers in the foreign language department, the social studies department, in the ELA department. So in a very well-rounded interdisciplinary manner, she's able to provide a lot of, let's say, culturally responsive lessons as well, and also bring in some of the PDs through some of our outside agencies, which we'll talk about in a moment. As you move down through GIS with the 3 5s and then down to K2, it's much the same. It's just at a more developmentally appropriate, in a more developmentally appropriate manner. So a lot of the book talks, a lot of the chats, the sit and speaks, a lot of the teacher-driven assignments and teacher-driven written responses. It's all at a developmentally appropriate level. And that's really important to know, although I wouldn't use a term such as watered down. Again, it's just at their level, the message is very clear and concise. And if we lay the foundation at the K2 level, bring it on up, straight through the high school, as you can see, which is the plan. I do believe that our children are getting everything they need to become more diverse, accepting, and responsive. So we actually feel pretty confident. I think you're seeing a ton of great work done right now, but I think you're also seeing the tip of the iceberg, because this is not something that is just going to fall off. This is something that's going to carry on. And the funds will continue to be dedicated to such programming.
Yeah, the good word there is enhancements.
Sure.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I'm just curious, the diversity group, the Goshen Diversity Group, what were some of their main concerns?
I think they were mainly concerned with how the current events, the Black Lives Matter movement, how would that be accepted or not accepted within the school? And I think what was really encouraging was to hear already about so many of the student-run groups who have begun discussing this, whether it's our student senate that has been holding, virtual and impromptu meetings over the summer and addressing those things, whether it was, through some of the AP assignments that were going out where there were prompts for students to reflect on these things, that it may not always be visible, and I think especially during this time, it might be less so because things are virtual. The extent to which teachers are actively taking, reality and bringing it back right into the classroom and affording students that opportunity. I think too, they asked about diversity in hiring practices, and as always, we look for candidates that are the best quality for our students. There's no way to, designate as to race on OLAS. We look at the credentials, and the interview process offers every single person a fair opportunity. So I think, that was reassuring as well.
Thank you.
Okay, Principal Martin, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Thanks for the great tour earlier. I'm going to jump to something that's not on my agenda, only because this came across at our 3 o'clock meeting this afternoon. And I know many of the parents out there and students are wondering what's going to happen with Section 9 athletics. And I do know this, that the New York State Physical Education High School Athletic Association has put together 3 proposals, and these are hot off the press. Scenario 1 is phase fall sporting opening beginning September 21st. Scenario 2 is a 3-season condensed model beginning January 4th. And of course, scenario 3 is a 3-season condensed model beginning November 30th. That would be winter sports first, starting the 30th. I'll get this information to the board, but here's what's going to happen. Our athletic directors are meeting again on Tuesday in the morning. I expect that Dr. O'Brien will be back with me Tuesday afternoon at Wednesday's 3 o'clock meeting. Section 9 superintendents are going to vote. And as it looks right now, because many of our schools are already out remotely until well into October and some even November, I think they're wrestling with how do you have athletics starting September 21st when in fact the kids aren't even in school yet? How do you provide equity for all kids who want to participate? Because maybe I don't have a car. How do I get to school? So a lot of these things are being tossed around and discussed. I'm not sure. I think model 1 or scenario 1, September 21st, that might be the one that probably will be quickly taken off the table. It's not definite. Scenario 2 is the 3-season condensed model beginning January 4th. And I think the thinking behind that is that our kids are all back at school. Vaccines are now out there. If you listen to Dr. Fauci and some of the other doctors and professionals, vaccines are just around the corner. So there's optimism and hope that we can have a 3-sport season, winter sports, then in early March, moving right into fall sports, and then at the end of April, moving into spring sports, hopefully providing an opportunity for all our kids to get some kind of a sports season. What I will do is, as this conversation plays out, I will relay the message back to the board. I'll get with President Pucci, let him know, and then let you know as well. But so there will be a vote on Tuesday, and I think it's right now. I think the majority of the school districts not opening up and having kids in their buildings until at least October. There's 3 or 4 or 5. Cornwall is actually opening up next week. Some of the other districts, Chester's opening next week. I think Florida's opening next week. There's probably, I'd say 60% of the schools that are much like us will really be on a full hybrid model starting on or about October 5th. We're going to roll kids in gradually, but so the feeling is, how do you have sports teams when in fact you don't have all your kids coming into school too? And the equity thing as well. Any questions on that?
I don't think it makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, this group has spent a lot of time on it. We spent a lot of time on this item today. Opening day for faculty. Well, let me just say this, 48 years I've been in the business, 34 as a superintendent, and it's without a question of doubt, the most challenging last 4 weeks I think I've had my whole life. But I want to congratulate, I want to thank the many people. We had tremendous support and effort by all our players, key players in our buildings, be it principals, be it the GTA, be it the CSEA group with Yolanda, these folks have really, we had numerous meetings here, but really pulled it together. You saw what Principal Martin has done at the high school. It's truly incredible. I know it still leaves people anxious. I'm not going to lie to you. I think our staff came in somewhat apprehensive. But today, first day was really, it was an acclimation. Everybody just getting settled. But day two, a lot going on. So I think with time, it will get better. I'm really pleased with the effort we're getting from our technology department. And I had to reach out to BOCES, or not BOCES, but Florida. We have a fellow who works for us, Walter, 2 days a week. I called down there. Our tech department has a few guys that have had very, very difficult things happen in their families and are really being pulled in other directions. So we reached out and got somebody from Florida. Jan's a great colleague of mine. She said, look, I'll send my guy up there to help you. Also, Margot over at Monroe Woodbury, Elsie, look at anything we can do to help you, when we're going to make it happen. So we want to be ready. We plan to be ready, but it's going to take a lot of work. So freshman barbecue, I wish John was still here. They did a fabulous job with that. That was really cool. It was a great event. I mean, I wish it were better attended, but we did have a shower one night. That kind of put a damper on things. But, you know, all in all, I think it's as good as it could be for the conditions. Grade 6, their ice cream social, Principal Carmen and her staff did a terrific job. I went up. I'm always happy to go to those things because I'm a big Stewart's ice cream fan. And I got my scoop of chocolate, scoop of vanilla. But they did a really neat job. And more importantly, if you were anywhere near the middle school, you saw the balloon figures they had there. They were really clever. In fact, I have one up in the office. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know what they do. I think they put them in the middle school lobby, but they're really cool. Whoever the person is that puts all of that together does an outstanding job. I do know from talking with Mr. Wentworth and also our Scotchtown principal, Henry Freeman, that they are planning to do socials there as well. I know Henry's is coming up, I believe, with the kindergartners this week. I'm not sure if Matt has already done his. Do you know? Jay?
The date is approaching this weekend.
Yeah, I think they're both are gonna. Yeah, so it's pretty exciting. I mean, it's for the conditions and terms that we're under. I give these principals, I give them a lot of credit. Assistant principals are really going the extra mile. Heather Carmen would have been here, joined us tonight, would have been part of the diversity conversation. I was personally in her building last week. She's done a tremendous job in her library and what she has available for diversity and cultural development and things. I think it's an outstanding job. And of course, you heard from Principal Martin, so they're doing a great job as well. With that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Connor. Next on the agenda is the Assistant Superintendent for Business Report, Louise Lynch.
Good evening. I have a couple of things to add to my report tonight, but they're all very brief. So you'll see before you tonight a modification to the tax levy, and that is due to the fact that there was some assessed value that was omitted. So it doesn't change anything. It just modifies the rates ever so slightly. The additional, I wanted to mention that there was some, I'll call it noise on social media relevant to the tax collection. There was both some good questions that were asked and some positive and responses. And there were a few people that were concerned that we were changing the culture of tax collection. But I was really excited about the fact that it was spreading the word out there in the community. And again, if there's any other way we can get that word out there, feel free to get in touch with me. And Martha, thank you for mentioning about the 20% reduction. I completely concur with everything you say, that at this point, I believe that the state is unwilling to acknowledge that it may be a permanent 20% reduction because they are anticipating the state may, or the federal government may jump in there and help New York schools out. So we're still in the wait and see game there. And the last item I just wanted to mention is there's this considerable amount of information from district council about new requirements relative to COVID, employees who become sick, or the potential for someone who might need to quarantine. And both Assistant Superintendent Carter and myself and Dr. Voloshin are spending a significant amount of time so that we can make sure that our employees are receiving the time off that they're entitled to. And as I've mentioned in the past, that will be charged to the FEMA grant, a portion of that. So stay tuned. Other than that, we have our audit committee meetings coming up, and I'll take any questions you may have.
Any questions? I think we're good, Louise. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is the Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum, Instruction, Personnel, and Technology, Mr. Carter.
Thank you, Mr. Pucci, and good evening, everyone. So just a few updates for you this evening. First, I'd like to start off with an update on our remote learning progress as we prepare to begin our program. As you heard, our webcams are currently being installed and our teachers are becoming more acclimated with the equipment. I did tour the buildings yesterday as I was doing or attending to a few other tasks, if you will. But I had an opportunity to see many teachers utilizing their Bluetooth headsets and also their webcams in multiple manners, both those that are attached to laptops permanently and those that we are providing, which are the webcams hooked by USB. Along the way, we were able to purchase some additional USB hubs that were needed and some additional 6-foot and 10-foot cords to allow for a bit more flexibility. One classroom in particular, of course I'll withhold the name, but I was very pleased to see the use of both a Chromebook and also the webcam in a separate location, which certainly allowed for a lot of freedom. So that was proof positive for me that those who had already had theirs installed, they were experimenting with it and trying to find the best possible scenarios in their classroom. Hopefully, we'll become more comfortable with that as time progresses. Wanted to mention that Kendra Parchinsky continues to work diligently for us, rostering all of our students district-wide into ClassLink, which is our single sign-on for all of the applications available to our students. We continue to explore options with the help of John Redeker, Jim Starrett, and Kendra is just, right now, she's working very, very hard to achieve that. If she hasn't already finished it today, we are in the final stages of that. And that's an important piece for us as we, not only want to offer that ease and the access, but also the ability to monitor attendance by login. So we're almost there with that. So again, a big thank you to Kendra for all of her extra efforts on behalf of the district. A few meetings ago, we had talked about some supervision questions, not issues, but there were questions about how we would supervise what's going on with Google Classroom and remote learning. So I just wanted to update the board and let you know that we solidified our subscription to Little Sis, which allows all of our administrators to jump on to every teacher's Google Classroom just to see what the output is, what assignments are going out, what the participation is, just a way for us to keep track of what's going on, rather than having to ask for permission from every single teacher to be attached to the Google Classroom. Certainly a great way for us to monitor everything that we're looking for, which is quality content and participation. If we can jump to new teacher orientation, very appreciative of the attendance that we had, especially by the administrative team and our school board members. It was very well attended by our new teachers and the mentors that have been chosen for them by the building level administrators. Again, that was on the 25th and the 26th. So I do have a listing of everything that we had gone through. I'm sure that you've already seen it. Tuesday and Wednesday, very beneficial for those new to the district. But as we move forward, most importantly would be the seminars that we've set up monthly for those new teachers. And this is something that we do every year, and I will tell you that we work closely together. It's Dr. Schneider, Mrs. Tyrell from GIS, myself, and a few others putting this together. Very well-rounded with great opportunities, and I do think it'll be well received by our new teachers in the district. Additionally, you know, we haven't really talked about it all that much in the past, but the mentors that have taken on this role meet with me in this building and a few other administrators 4 times throughout the year, just as check-ins, but also to really get into the weeds on, you know, what they're seeing, gather some quality feedback, and to provide more assistance as needed. So I'm just trying to paint this picture for you so that you understand that it is a very comprehensive program that we put on district-wide. I believe last meeting we had talked about the network stress test. So we did do a very large stress test today. So this afternoon at 2 p.m., you know, we wanted to test out what is our upgraded system doing for us? How does it handle everything? So if you do recall, we upgraded to 500 megabytes guaranteed with a possibility of a 1 gigabyte burst. That's pretty big. That's a good amount of bandwidth. Today at 2 p.m. we had over 1,500 devices on the system at one time, streaming and doing other things simultaneously. And our peak throughput was 411 megabytes. So we didn't hit that 500 guaranteed. We stayed under with 1,500 devices on. So of course, you know, there may be a time when we hit more than 1,500, but I think today was a very good marker for what we can achieve and what our performance will be. So I'd like to think that we should be quite successful moving forward. If there's a need to do, you know, any further testing, of course we will. But I think the most important piece of all, not only what I had just said, which was that I think we'll be successful moving forward, there was no degradation notified or brought about by any of this. So our system held up.
So I just have one comment on that. I mean, that's great. That's great news. My concern is, do we have SLAs with BOCES? Because now BOCES, you know, is going to have whatever many districts they have coming in through their pipe.
Sure.
You know, they might have a bottleneck. We might be great because we have our 500 meg, but it's going to go through BOCES who might be the bottleneck and that cause problems.
Yeah. So we've experienced issues with that in the past. I'm not necessarily sure that that's predictable by any time frame, like it happens every day at 3:30 or anything like that. I know that when we did have issues in the past, it was with a 300 guaranteed and still the 1 gigabyte burst allowance. With this 500, you know, I'm not quite sure what the pull will be countywide going through the BOCES networking. I only know what the guarantees are. I'd like to remain hopeful that it'll stay positive for us, but I can certainly inquire about any questions you have.
I would just ask about, I'm sorry, service level agreements with BOCES. Say we're guaranteed 500 meg. If we're hitting 400 meg at peak, and we're seeing latency and, you know, communication issues, video dropping, audio dropping, that, you know, what are you going to do for us? Because we pay them a lot of money. I'm sure we do.
I will certainly ask that tomorrow.
Thank you.
No problem at all. So moving on, we had talked just a few moments ago about a lot of professional development opportunities, especially at the high school. Again, a great in-house program. And one of our goals here, not only for the first day of our conference day series, that was to allow for acclimation, but also moving forward, it was to allow for the buildings to achieve what they wanted to achieve in-house, and then also provide outside vendors, or rather professional development opportunities provided by outside vendors. So one of the things that we had done this year, because we are in the Model Schools Consortium with BOCES, we cashed in 2 Model Schools days so that we would have unlimited access on the 2nd and 3rd to their full listing of professional development opportunities. These are asynchronous opportunities provided by BOCES. Some are 2 hours, some are 3 hours, some are a bit longer. They last throughout the entire day. Mr. Connor and I can tell you that we had a great turnout in participation because we had to approve every single one of those. If you'd like to share the number. So that's great. And of course, that's over a 2-day period. Again, asynchronous, Teachers are able to take as many as they want, which is even, a larger perk for us. In addition, I really want to say thank you to Matt O'Brien and Lynn Abrams for all the things that they're doing, building upon the initiatives that we began last year and rolling into this year with mental health and first aid, which is ongoing through Lynn Abrams and her training. And also Matt O'Brien touched base with a few key figures at the Institute for Social Emotional Learning and brought in 2.5-hour social emotional mental health trainings for each building, which we will then progress into, some of our other departments district-wide, transportation and so on. So I really feel as though what we are trying to achieve with receiving our students and providing them the very best, and also recognizing some of the signs of, stress and so on, I think we're doing a good job of helping our teachers to prepare and our other adults to prepare in multiple departments. So that will also be ongoing. Just to give you an idea of a few of the things, I'll just pass these around just so you can take a look at some of the offerings that we had and a look at the stress test and what that graph looked like, just to offer you a better understanding of the vision. Okay? And that is it for me today. Any questions?
A question on supervision. Who's going to get access? The full principals and
The Little Sis program?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it'd be, principals and directors that are in supervisory roles.
Okay.
Including myself and Mr. Klein.
The stress test, did that have every teacher in our district sign on at the same time?
So we sent out a district-wide email using the everyone address to say at 2 p.m. today, please get onto a device, whatever you may be doing, just put a straight on the network and full. And all, I don't know who it was, but I know that we had 15 devices logged on as per the document, the readout that Jim Starrett had provided. I hope it was everyone. It may not have been, but I know for certain it was 1,500 devices.
Yeah, that's great. That's really good.
Yeah, no problem.
Does that tell us that it worked?
Well, by all indications today, I would say it was a success.
I guess, how come you get any feedback that was negative by anybody? I mean, I'm sure teachers would have said, oh, it was choppy, it was bad, or.
Probably about, we started at 2 o'clock, so let's just say 2:05, we had a pretty good strain on there. And I think there's a timestamp on the diagram itself. BOCES at about 2:30-ish or thereafter. After our peak, they did experience some network outages, but I don't believe it was because of us. It was after our peak. And that's why I wanted you to see that graph. I'm not quite sure about the service agreement and the final language in that.
Yeah, because they should provide us some type of service level agreement. We're paying for this X amount. We need to be guaranteed this, and if we don't go beyond that and we're having issues, we need to know where the issues are. Is it Google? Is it you guys? I mean, it's because now we're in a different world. Things are a lot different now, and we're going to be relying on connectivity a lot more than we ever did.
And maybe we can get some feedback from the principals and send out an email saying how their teachers experienced
That'd be a good idea.
their connectivity. Because they might not voluntarily say, hey, my thing crashed, or hey, it was perfect.
They have to,
Seems like they all went on.
Yeah.
I just don't know. I'm naive to this, to be honest with you, but I didn't know if that tells us it worked.
well, I think it's great because I think the teachers that have that many shows that they're
And now
concerned.
maybe
One,
they can feedback.
they want to know how it works.
Yeah.
If you didn't get any negative feedback by now,
Well, I don't know.
well, I understand, but I would hope somebody would say something. I'm thinking it's a successful test. in my opinion, but
Well, I share that opinion. However, I will ask for feedback.
Yep.
And again, full transparency, I will tell you, I know even this morning at 7:45, 8 o'clock, people were experiencing issues with their mail.
Yep.
So once in a while you have days for whatever reason. That was way in advance of our test. And I know that the network outage that occurred was after our peak, by more than 15, 20 minutes, from what I understand.
So I can tell you the past couple of days, CenturyLink, which is a huge internet provider, a level 1, level 2 provider, who's having massive outages across the country. So you don't know what routes we were taking to, what teachers were So there might have been some that might have had a problem, because this was a major outage that was causing issues from people all the way in California. We had doctors that couldn't get in. One of our security applications that we used was not working properly. So there were a lot of issues on the internet for the past, I would say since the weekend up until probably yesterday. So gotta take that with a grain of salt, I guess, too, but.
That's the tough part. We can be doing everything right. We're beholden to those scenes, we're beholden to all that. Yep.
Listen, when COVID first hit, it was a mess. There was a huge problem down in the city. People were having a lot of problems staying connected to their remote work, and not us, it's service provider. So, it's stuff like that you gotta look out for. But if you didn't get a lot of complaints, I'm thinking it's successful. I hope people would share their issues.
And this is something that, it's easy enough to repeat. It's not that I'm volunteering anyone. I just know that it took a simple email to have 1,500 devices logged on at 2 p.m. If this was a day where there was something going on way beyond Goshen, way beyond OU BOCES, deeper into the service providers' logs, this is something that we can repeat, even tomorrow. I'm certainly far more than willing to do that.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice job.
Okay, next on the agenda is the consent agenda. Need a motion? Judy and Tom? Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education approves the consent agenda as presented. All in favor? Opposed? We have no old business. We'll go to new business. Do I have old business?
Yeah, they.
Go ahead.
Next one, we'll spend one.
Yeah. Marking. Ah. What am I? Yeah. Sorry about that. We do have old business. 10.1. Revised resolution for tax rolls and authorized tax levy action. Any motion? Mike and Allison. The revised resolution approved at the August 17th, 2020 Board of Education meeting state. Whereas the Board of Education has been authorized by the voters at the annual school meeting to raise for the current budget of the 2020-21 school year a sum not to exceed $76,083,837. Therefore, be it resolved, the board fixed the equalized tax rates by towns and confirm the extension of the taxes as they appear on the following described tax roll. Tax roll as presented. And hereby directed that the tax warrant of this board, duly signed, shall be affixed to the above described tax rolls, authorizing the collection of said taxes to begin September 1st, 2020, and end November 4th, 2020, giving the tax warrant an effective period of 65 days, at the expiration of which time the tax collector shall make an accounting in writing to the board. And it is further directed that the delinquent tax penalties shall be fixed as follows. September 1st to September 30th, interest-free period. October 1st to October 31st, interest of 2% added. November 1st to November 4th, interest of 3% added. All in favor? Opposed? .1 new business. Schedule audit committee meeting for Monday, September 21st, 2020 at 6 p.m. This year we're combining the external and internal into one meeting. Any motion? Allison and Tom? Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the members of the audit committee will meet on Monday, September 21st, 2020 at 6 p.m. to discuss the internal audit completed by Cooper Arias LLP and the external audit completed by Nugent and House. All there? Opposed? 11.2, I need a motion for approval of minutes and transcription for the August 17th, 2020 meeting. Kind of weird reading the transcription. Do that would be the transcription. Judy and Mike? Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education approves the minutes and transcription for the August 17th, 2020 regular board meeting. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? 11.3, I need a motion to approve agreement for special education services, self-allocation of IDEA 611 and 619 funds. Mike? Allison? Be resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education entered into an agreement with NYSARC, Inc. to provide special educational services for students and for the district to self-allocate IDEA 611 and 619 funds to said provider on a per-student basis for the school year July 1st, 2020 through June 30th, 2021. All in favor? Opposed? 11.4. Need a motion to approve agreement for vision services. Judy? Tom? Be resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education approves entering into an agreement with Jennifer Kirk to provide teacher of the vision evaluation services at a rate of $500 per evaluation, effective the 2020-21 school year. Be it further resolved, the Board of Education authorizes the superintendent of schools to execute the agreement. This is no change from last year. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? 11.5. Need a motion for approval of lead evaluators for teacher certification. Judy and Mike. Be it resolved that pursuant to the requirements of Education Law, Section 3012-D, in Part 30-2.9 of the Regents Rules, the following people have completed all the required training to be recertified by this Board of Education as lead evaluators for classroom teachers. Jason Carter, Jennifer Martin, Heather Carmen, Matthew Wentworth, Nancy Musick, Heather Hendershot, all recertification. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Next on the agenda is board member issues. And I need a motion to.
It's not really issues, it's just like a quick checklist I just wanted to ask about. CTEC students are all set, I haven't noticed anything on the website, but maybe I'm missing something, so I've gotten some calls from CTEC parents.
So the CTEC scheduling, as far as I know right now, we're waiting on a few confirmations from BOCES to see where some availabilities lie with some of the requests that we had. As far as the transportation, everything is scheduled and everyone should be notified of what that schedule looks like. We've worked closely with Karen Wells on the schedule to provide the necessary transportation. And as far as I know, everything is well up and running.
Okay, and the parents know who to contact at BOCES with this question?
I'm not quite sure if they were notified by our departments thus far, but we can certainly make sure that parents know just who to contact at BOCES if they have questions. But also they can contact our administrative team as well.
And then you just said something about bus schedules. Bus schedule's going to be out. I mean, we have some time now before bus schedules.
Yeah. So there were a couple of things that Karen Wells was working on when we last spoke at our cabinet meeting. Mr. Connor and I had called her on a few things. You know, there are some special provisions with childcare and other things that really determine the routing and the scheduling. So she is working through that, but the last time that we had checked with her, the majority of the schedule was done. Parents should be notified, I'm assuming very soon, if not, you know, tomorrow or the next day. I just don't have a solid date for you.
And then you may not have an answer for this too, but just, some parents have been asking about, any of the extracurriculars, like even with athletics.
Yeah.
That even if it does get pushed in the interim, is there, because it does say that, you know,
Yeah.
the league is saying that you can have conditioning.
Mhm.
So maybe even on a hybrid schedule, if your student's only there on 2 days a week, maybe those 2 days a week, there's some small sided things going on just to keep them going, not just athletics, but any of our.
No, I understand. So as far as the athletics, you know, I'll certainly wait for the votes to come in and for the provisions to be handed out. And Matt O'Brien will certainly be able to take care of that part. As far as the extracurriculars, Mr. Connor and I had a great conversation again with our cabinet regarding extracurriculars. So we do have plans on moving forward with extracurricular activities in a you know, remote sense for the majority. And if possible with proper spacing and numbers, you know, it's not impossible to hold something in person. However, the majority will be, to begin with, remote.
Yeah, so like the play and science Olympiad, all
Yeah.
those things.
Understand mine.
Yeah, those are the very things that we had discussed.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah.
One thing that's top of my head, do we want to, before, we got the order.
That's before the.
Following meeting, I guess, maybe we'll get their building in to work.
Oh, yeah, the next one's the 14th, and then the audit committee is the next week.
We have a meeting on the 14th.
Regular board meeting,
Yeah, fortunately,
the 14th of Monday, I think.
are you having that much fun?
Oh, so we have
Monday.
back to back.
Yeah, we're gonna,
No, we'll just be separate.
we'll do that. All right, so 14th, we want to do Tuesday or
We could, sure.
Okay. Same time, 5:45?
So, look,
Good, everybody?
Sure.
I missed that. Okay, then I need a motion to close these. Al, and Al. All in favor?